We step into the universe with humility and hope.
I should like to extend greetings to the extraterrestrial inhabitants of outer space.
Bonjour tout le monde. Et pace per nostra fede. Tanti auguri e saluti. Riyadu Melissa, Marina.
We step into the universe with humility and hope.
Chân thành gửi tới các bạn lời chào thân hữu. Faz felicidade a todos. Namaskar, Vishe Shanti Ho. تحياتنا للأصدقاء ذو النجوم. يا ليت يجمعنا زمان.
Welcome. We greet you, oh great ones, as we were just greeted in the video. A sense of being awakened. Hello from the children of planet Earth. Thanks for coming to the 16th annual Blessing Today and saying yes to stepping into the universe with humility and hope, and with the rest of us. My name is Ann Homke, and I'm on the core team of the All Volunteer Peace Center in San Antonio. And since 2006, we've been gathering like this once a year to celebrate the blessing of the San Antonio Peacemakers. It brings together people of many spiritual paths, faith traditions, and religions. And the blessing marks the beginning of the national 64-day season for nonviolence, as well as honoring all the peacemakers in our city. It is always held on the last Sunday of January, The national season for nonviolence is from January 30th through April 4th. 64 days of education, media, grassroots campaigns that demonstrate that nonviolence, peacemaking, and compassion are powerful ways to heal, transform, and empower our lives and communities. It was inspired in 1998 by the 50th and 30th memorial anniversaries of the assassinations of Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This international event honors their vision for an empowered and nonviolent world. Since 2008, and during this blessing of the Peacemakers, the Peace Center has announced and appointed the San Antonio Peace Laureate, a voice, a person who has dedicated their life, and not just for short periods of time, but a long period of time, to the making of peace in our city. And as they become a laureate, their voice of wisdom and experience then speaks for peace and justice in San Antonio. So since 2008, I'd like to show you the lineage of our San Antonio peacemakers. And if any of these folks are with us, I'm waiting for a slide so that we can all see. If any of these folks are with us, I hope they say hi in the chat. And I'm hoping that you know some of these people and that you know of their wisdom and that you know of their experience and what they have contributed. There are stars in our universe whose lives have led and taught us. But on today, we also dedicate this day to one who has gone before us, to Nikki Valdez. She was one of our 2019 Peace Laureates. And I'd like to take a moment of pause. And if you wish, just to say Nikki's name with me. Nikki. Last year, the all-volunteer Peace Center of San Antonio started doing business. That might be a little bit more metaphorical than legal and official, but we started doing work as compassionate San Antonio grassroots. And in recognition of that, we've added 2 more honors this year, with the clear understanding that it's through the acts of compassion that peace is created. These are being called the Golden Rule Awards. So we're going to be hearing from our 2 first Golden Rule awardees today. And all said, the actual blessing today, and as it's always been, is for everyone who works for peace in San Antonio and even beyond. I've seen some folks, a dear friend from Phoenix, I saw that he signed in, and I saw someone else from Seattle. So it's not just for those folks here, but the blessing, the ritual, which will come later, will be for everyone. I want to ask, though, we're going to be using the chat today, kind of like polling. So at this moment, I'm going to ask everyone in one word, just one, how are you feeling right now and about today's blessing? So if you would just write that in your chat, it'd be fun, great, encouraged, hopeful. Hello from Rosie, wonderful, grateful. Gruntled, love you. Again, we greet you, oh great ones. We are all now invited to step into a time of blessing, a time to step into the universe together with humility and with hope. I now want to pass this to Rosalind Collier, one of the co-founders of the Peace Center and also on the core team. Rosalind.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to have this through the magic of Zoom, not limited to San Antonio, but out there in the universe. This is a former Zoomophobe who has become a Zoomophile. My friends call me the Zoomer Boomer. I'm on Zoom all the time now. So welcome everyone from wherever you come. Greetings and friendly wishes to all who encounter this blessing today. As we prepare our space and time together, there is this secret that I would like to share with all of you. On ne voit bien qu'avec les cœurs. L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux. It is only with the heart that one sees rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. So take a deep breath and let that sink into the marrow of your bones. We're moving from the faculty of eyesight down to seeing with our hearts for the next hour and a half at least. And if you haven't already, please light your candle and set your screen to gallery view. Take a minute to light a candle if you have it nearby and set your screen to gallery view. So the pandemic and Zoom rooms have brought us into an entirely new universe in terms of how we relate to each other. There's her candle, sweet. Great, Blanca. Take a moment to scan the Zoom screen in front of you. Those small boxes that frame each of our faces are like icons of presence among us, like stars through a telescope. And if you can, swipe to see different faces. Be aware, I see a face from Canada. Welcome. Several faces, wow. Oh. Take some time to breathe in those compassionate peacemakers from wherever they are located. Oh, this is great. Sister Germaine, oh, my teacher at Incarnate Word. Sweet. We are the inhabitants of this earth, of this city. We in this land bring warm greetings to all of humanity. Hello to our friends in the stars. May time bring us all together. Let us step into the universe together with humility and hope. And now I would like to introduce one of the co-founders of the San Antonio Peace Center that was founded 26 years ago this year. Her name is Susan Ives, and she is going to be doing introductions. Susan?
Good afternoon. About a year ago, the Express News announced with great fanfare, CLAC is back. Well, I'm about to announce with great fanfare that CLAC is here. Carrie Clack is our first recipient of the Golden Rule Journalist Award. So let's hear it for Carrie. Everybody muted. There's no clapping. Whoa. Our Golden Rule Awards. Yeah, we can do jazz hands or something like that. Our Golden Rule Awards are for people who, in the course of their everyday jobs, going about doing their business, personify the Golden Rule, treat others and the planet as you wish to be treated. And oh my goodness, Carrie is the epitome of that. Are you blushing yet, Carrie? Carrie's a native of the east side of San Antonio. He went to St. Mary's University and got a degree in political science. And he worked as a scholar intern at the King Center in Atlanta, where he wrote for Coretta Scott King. And for many years afterwards, he held workshops there at the King Center in Atlanta. He's a peacemaker from the get-go. He told a story in his Express News column a couple of weeks ago on the 100th birthday of Maury Maverick, the late Maury Maverick, another friend of the Peace Center, that he wanted to be a writer. Oh my goodness, he wanted to be a writer. And he was at the post office setting off a clip file when this man approached him and struck up a conversation. And it was Maury Maverick, who knew everybody in San Antonio and himself was writing a column for the Express News. And Maury adopted Carrie as one of Maury's kids and got him a job at the Express News. We called this the Golden Rule Journalist Award, but Carrie really isn't a journalist anymore. He's a columnist. And a columnist is different. A journalist, a reporter, reports the news in an objective way. A columnist is different. What they do is they rip open their heart and squeeze the blood from inside their body onto the page. It's a very vulnerable place to be. And that's what Carrie does. He opens up his heart and he squeezes his lifeblood onto the page and exposes himself to us. And in doing so, he opens up a new universe, a new way of looking, a new way of being, a new way of thinking and feeling to us. If you haven't read Carrie Clack's articles, if you're not from San Antonio, because everybody from San Antonio has read Carrie Clack, I really recommend you do so because he is such a unique voice and a longtime friend of the Peace Center. We've always known we can call on Carrie to maybe write a column about us if we're really lucky, or to speak at one of our events, or to introduce one of our Peace Laureates, as he did when Rosie Castro was a Peace Laureate. A few years ago, he moved back to the East Side on the very street where he was born and raised. He's writing again after a break for the Express News. He took some time off to be a political talking head, but he knew that his real calling was writing for the Express News. Muriel Rukeyser, who's a poet, once said that the universe isn't made up of atoms, it's made up of stories. And stories are what Carrie does. He is the ultimate storyteller. He tells our stories, the story of us, of our city, of our people, of our strengths, of our failings, the way that we need to have those stories told. And so instead of having me tell Carrie's story, Carrie, I'm going to turn it over to you, our first Golden Rule journalist, to tell your story. Unmute, Carrie.
Thank you very much, Susan. Yeah, besides forgetting to mute and unmute yourself, you tend to wait for a couple of rounds of applause or something, and then of course, in this virtual world, we have none. But thank you very much for the very warm introduction, and thanks to you and Ann, Rosalind, Jan, everyone associated with the Peace Center. Your many years of hard work, of being a true moral compass in our community. And I'm honored to share this blessing, this occasion with Jacqueline, who's a friend, and with the Circle School. Elizabeth, Rachel, and Vivian, the youngest of us speaking today. I'm touched to be the first recipient of the Golden Rule Journalism Award, but am happier knowing that other journalists and the profession of journalism will be recognized for years to come. I'll get to the banner behind me in a minute, but Anne wanted us to say a few words of how we got here. Yeah, I just want to say, going back to what Susan said about my relationship with the King Center, it was, I've written before, it's the most transformative experience of my life. When I was an intern there in the summer of '84 and the years since then, one of Mrs. King's, Coretta Scott King's great legacies. And it was a place where I ended up finding a career and also a philosophical framework, I guess, from which I was able to write. And thanks to an incredible intern director, Lillian Baxter, who remains today one of my great friends and one of the greatest mentors I have. And I think Lily is out there somewhere. And just to all of my King Center family, we continue to keep in touch. We Zoom every 2 or 3 weeks, and we plot and we organize. And it changed my world around, so that by the time I was able to get a chance at the Express News, thanks to Amore Maverick and Bob Richter, Sterling Holmesley, who gave me my column, Linnell Burkett, Josh Podesky, who brought me back. It gave me a place to tell stories. And I feel kind of self-conscious about this award, because it's one thing if you get an award for something that you wrote, and you could have enough confidence to say, hey, that was a great piece I wrote, so I deserved it. But something like this is you're kind of being honored for being a person, for being humane. And I'm in a position, because of the platform that I have, that what I write about, it gets more recognition in the work that people are actually doing. But the only reason that you know anything about me or the things I write is because I write for a daily local newspaper, the San Antonio Express News. And at my newspaper, and in print and broadcast newsrooms across the country, are journalists doing the same thing, if not better than I do. So in recognizing me, you're honoring the San Antonio Express News. I've never put this banner up before. I've had it for almost a year, and this morning decided to put it up because this is who you're honoring. You're honoring them. You're honoring the New York Times. You're honoring the Washington Post, the Seguin Gazette, the Sacramento Bee. I don't even know if the Sacramento Bee is still around, but you're honoring every newspaper and broadcast outlet out there. If nonviolence is love in action and being good to each other, if peace is a state where justice is present and we are treating each other well and with compassion, then journalism is the record, the documented evidence of how well or how poorly we treat each other, lifting us up with stories which can inspire, or shaming us with stories illustrating our neglect and reminding us we must do better. And it's journalists who are informing you about the disruptors of peace, as my banner begins to fall. The journalists are informing you, telling you about the threat of insurrectionists who want us to hate ourselves into another civil war, kill each other into a racial Armageddon, who don't want us to lobby or just vote, but because elections don't go their way, want to disrupt democracy, overturn elections, and assassinate leaders of both parties. The times are dark, but what gives me hope is knowing that you can't insurrect a spirit which is ancient in its yearning that people live together in peace. You can't insurrect an ethic of love and love thy neighbor, which transcends time, nationalities, and religions. And you can't insurrect a rule so enduring and shining that is called golden. Those who want to insurrect through hate and violence won't win, because they can't defeat those of us who will resurrect our commitment to the spirit and ethics of love, peace, and treating each other like the brothers and sisters we are. There are more of us than there are of them. And I usually don't like to talk in terms of us and them, but there are more of us than them. And we will win. And when we do, you're going to read about it in the newspaper. So thank you very much. Thank you for this honor. Thank you for all that the Peace Center does. And thank you for my city of San Antonio. Thank you.
Yeah, give the man some love. I see you all clapping and waving, and you can put some emoticons in there. But I think that one of the best ways we can tell Kerry thank you and honor his contribution is to even think for a moment about how your life connected in some way with his. Was there something that you resonated with? Something that spoke to you strongly? And if you're sitting there with someone else, you might want to share that with them. But I invite you to put 1 or 2 words in the chat about that connection, or where you were inspired, and so that Kerry can see those things, hear those things. Resurrection, not insurrection. Thanks, Louise. Noble. Perseverance. Beautiful. On target. Our stories carry us through. Kerry, I really appreciated how you mentioned the other newspapers as well. And that when this story is told, it will be a newspaper telling it. So thank you for that. You can keep adding words into the chat box, but I'm going to point back now to Susan as she introduces our next Golden Award.
Our first Golden Rule educator is Dr. Jackie Clouch. And as Jill Biden taught us, that doctor is important. Jackie grew up in the Valley and came up to San Antonio when she was in high school with some family friends to attend a sibling's graduation at Trinity University, and said to herself, I'm going to go there. And she did. She graduated with a degree in mathematics and went on to get a master's degree in mathematics and computer science, and eventually a doctorate in educational leadership. Her first job was with IBM as a systems engineer. We got to know Jackie in 1998 when she was appointed as the founding president of Northwest Vista College. And she tells the story of when she first went there. She stood in the empty parking lot, and there was one building and a trailer. And she said to herself, how am I ever going to fill this up with students? And when she left 16 years later, there were precisely 16,384 students attending Northwest Vista. If you've never been there, you should go just to drive through the campus, because I think it's one of the prettiest college campuses in the United States, not just in San Antonio. Oh my goodness, it's glorious. And that was Jackie's vision, that it's important to give these kids, mostly first generation, the majority of them Latinx, a beautiful place, a respectful place for their education. And she sent her new faculty out to the local schools to say, we have a college for you. This is a college that is built for you. This is a place where you are welcome, where you can grow, where you can thrive, where you can change the world with the things that you will learn here, and that we will change the world with the things that we learn from you. Northwest Vista, Jackie actually hired us when they started a concentration in peace and justice studies. Think about that. A community college, a 2-year college where you could study peace and justice studies and conflict resolution and learn how to change the world. And that investment she made in her faculty was profound. They are still friends of ours, and I see some of them here. I see you, Meg, for one, Magdalea Garcia, who is with the Peace and Justice faculty now. And she retired in 2014 and had a full life until last year, when she showed up to the blessing of the Peacemakers, and we roped her in to work with us again. And she has been an invaluable voice. In a city like San Antonio, higher education is so important. It's our way out of poverty. It's our way out of a divided city. And this is something that Jackie has understood and promoted. I'm going to quote another poet, this one, W.B. Yeats, the Irish poet, who said, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And Jackie is a fire lighter. She has lit this fire of education. So I'm going to turn it over to her, because she has given her students the education that we all need, the education we all deserve, the education that is so needed in this city. And she has changed the face of San Antonio with her vision for Northwest Vista College. So Jackie, our Golden Rule Educator of 2021, the floor is yours.
Susan, now I'm even more nervous than I was before. Really.
Oh, there's Carlos.
Pardon?
Carlos Lopez just said
Carlos
hi.
Lopez. He was one of those people that you all came to teach with.
We did.
I haven't seen Carlos in a long time because he left to go to California. I think it's California.
It is.
But it was a joy to see his face a little while ago. So I'm going to use some notes off and on because, first, because I'm nervous. And second, I don't want to forget things. This blessing of the Peacemakers makes me feel blessed just to be here. I've been to some before. Gary Clack, I feel blessed to have him here with me, although I find him a tough act to follow. Carrie once spoke with our graduates at one of our early graduations. His words inspired them and me. Ever since I was told about this Golden Rule Award for educators that I was to receive, I have felt I think, as Carrie described, humbled and somewhat daunted. I think of all those who serve our children and adults, who teach and otherwise support students' growth. I think of those from whom I've learned, with whom I worked and served and led. Please know that as far as I'm concerned, this award is yours. The golden rule. I learned the words as a child, a really young child in a small town in Ohio, from loving parents, grandparents, Sunday school. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Words whose meaning I believe became my conscience. How often I have failed, and yet I hope in failing learned, on a journey where threads emerged of becoming, of learning and growing, of creating together cultures of peace for ourselves, for our students, for our community. And then, actually, when I was 10, my family, with myself and my 3 younger siblings, moved to Texas, to the Rio Grande Valley, the small town of La Feria, where in 1962 I graduated from high school. I grew to love this culture. Half Mexican American, half Anglos, with a few other cultures thrown in. I made friends, I loved school, I played sports, but I also found questions, not usually questions I spoke, about divisions amidst diversity, about who was in charge, about who should be in charge. It was mainly playing sports that gave me the opportunity to find unity and love in diversity. In looking back, I wondered if many just accept the cultures into which they were born. I wonder if perhaps the biases are more easily discovered from others' eyes. Skipping forward, although I did in fact love Trinity University and the work I did in San Antonio after that, and another return to San Antonio, I spent quite a long time in Dallas. In 1975, I found my way to Richland College, one of the Dallas County community colleges, where I would spend 23 years. When first entering that place, I knew little of the mission of community colleges for serving students who might not otherwise be able to access education beyond high school. Over time, I realized that I had found my passion and that maybe I was also finding myself. So many years, so many stories of people, of learning, of creating, of being in community. There are a few people here today with whom I shared that journey. And so I don't have much time for sharing Richland experiences, but I'm going to share just a couple. The first is learning to hug. And I wrote a little, poem maybe, I don't know what it is. He hugged me today. Well, he's a counselor. Maybe that's his way. Oh dear, another hug. I've never learned to do that. Always been afraid. More hugs. It feels like caring. Could I learn to do this? But something holds me back. Now that so many years have passed, I cannot recall that moment when first my arm reached out or who the person was I hugged. But I can tell you this, of all important lessons learned, the act of hugging will remain forevermore the best. So time passed. I learned a lot from a lot of people that I loved and still do. In the late 80s, after about 5 other positions at the college, I had been asked to move to a new position in which I would lead and facilitate a variety of programs that crossed academic as well as student support services. And then this day shortly after that, I don't remember all the details, but here's the gist of how it went. My president, he probably remembers, calls me to his office. And as we sit, he says, "Jackie, I want you to start a multicultural center as part of your new role." My response, "Okay, so what do you want this center to do?" "I have no idea," he said, "but I'll move some people there. You figure it out." And so with some research in my hands, this diverse gang of passionate people came together, created a shared vision, and proceeded to change the face of Richland College. I am forever grateful for that opportunity to make a difference and for the many circles of practice that showed the way for me. And by the way, every once in a while, as you see, I choke up a little, or maybe even have a few tears. It's not that I'm sad. It's just the way I am. So then to Northwest Vista College in February of 1998, a time of formation. As Susan mentioned, I left Richland College to begin a new phase of my journey as the president there, the newest college of the Alamo colleges. She talked about the beautiful setting, about the trailer where I think about 6 student success specialists supported and brought students in to classes that were then mostly somewhere besides the campus. There were also about 10 other people there when I got there, working at the Alamo College district office because the trailer was already full. I could tell early on that there was this common dedication to the success of students, but that unless we worked together with focus and vision and values, we might not succeed. I remember that day we gathered in a circle in the trailer where each person shared what he or she valued in a work culture. They spoke, I listened and wrote. Out of that circle of 16 that day, a set of values to guide us came. Values like learning, diversity, integrity, caring, and more. Over time, the mission we shared, we called Creating Opportunities for Success. And we developed a vision together focused on learning together. From there, we moved and built and grew. And then another memory that always stays with me came in 2007. in the spring. My husband had been hospitalized and after about a month passed away. And so I was gone from the college for over a month. I returned to work the day the college was to have a 3-day visit from a Texas Quality Award. And I was wondering how I was going to do this. No need to worry. I would find many folks had come together to make it happen. I watched the opening video as we gathered in the performance hall with our visitors. A song and dance that they had created was the essence of moving together. In that moment, here I go again, I knew they were the leaders. And as for me, I also learned that one can hold sadness and joy at once. And by the way, the college received the award. We went on to infuse formation and renewal, learning from former colleagues, formed circles of practice. We trained facilitators and brought people together for their own renewal and wholeness journeys in community with others. In 2014, I retired. A difficult decision to make, but my daughter was taking her own journey with cancer, and I wanted to journey together with her in the last days of her life. I watched her courage, and I had to find my own. And after a time, I was brought once again back to the 2020 blessing of the peacemakers. I came with my friend Magdalea, and there I reconnected with Anne and Rosalind and Susan, who, as they've told you, joined a group of faculty at Northwest Vista to form a peace and conflict emphasis. At the 2020 blessing, I learned about Compassion San Antonio and soon found myself involved with a group of remarkable men and women in a compassionate integrity training initiative. That's a mouthful. We are continuing that initiative with a vision to bring circles of peace and compassion learning to all levels of education and to all aspects of our city. And let's not forget our city's Compassion Tree Project to plant 20,000 trees and maybe save some others. Our trees are friends. They have long been mine. Are trees compassionate? I believe they are. So my blessings to all with whom I have shared my journey and with whom I share this Golden Rule for Educators Award. The people, the trees, the hummingbirds, and butterflies. I love you all.
I want to invite you again to take a moment and reflect on how Jackie's life has spoken to yours, how they connect, resonate, or how she's inspired you to write some of those words into chat so she can hear them. Whenever we would talk about this award with Jackie, she tended to share tears every time, and she would also say, "I don't deserve this." But you know, we're all Jackie, and she's all of us. Yes, we're all compassionate, but we can all become more so. And so we're a learning community together and growing into our better selves. So Jackie has really led the way with that. So I want to thank her. And it looks to me, Jackie, like there are a lot of others who do as well. Thank you, Martha Ann. Carrie and Jackie, good to be on the earth with you. Everybody else in this picture frame. So we're about to hear from our laureates this year, the Circle School, but they actually come bearing gifts to us first. And I think that's a real sign of a true peacemaker, is one who comes bearing gifts while serving at the same time. But they have prepared some music for us today. And I think we're going to hear that song now.
Do 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 do. Circle of hands, circle of hearts. This is how a new day starts. Circle of verse, circle of stars, sun and moon and stars. A tale to tell, a song to sing. We find our roots and try our wings. The rainbow dream, the golden rule, teaching peace, the circle school. Circle of time, circle of trust, a world that grows in each of us. Circle of family, circle of friends, live by love tonight. A tale to tell, a song to sing. Find our roots and our wings. Golden rule, teaching peace, circle school. Teaching peace, circle school.
And Susan, pass this on to Susan to introduce our laureate for today.
I think they just did a wonderful job of introducing themselves. Oh my goodness. Jackie, whatever you had is contagious. The Circle School is on Pershing. And if you note, it's about in between the Whitty Museum and Fort Sam, Houston. It was started in 1965, I think mainly by parents who were stationed at Fort Sam in the middle of the Vietnam War as a peace school.
Part of it.
A peace school. Can you imagine that? It's it blows my mind. We were first introduced to the Circle School by Miss Barbie, who was a teacher there at the time, Barbie Gorlick, who became a member of the Peace Center school score team, and asked us if we had heard of the Circle School. It's like, well, no. And our minds were blown. We've done a lot of projects with them. Probably the most notable is for many years, there's a wreath laying at the statue of Martin Luther King the day before our Martin Luther King March in San Antonio, the largest in the nation. And the Circle School children would make a wreath for us. They'd trace their hands on construction paper and then form those dozens and dozens of hands into a wreath. And it was striking. If you went to look at the wreaths after they had all been laid, there were 100 florist wreaths, and then our wreath that we did in conjunction with the Circle School. Another thing that they do every year is called the Pumpkin Path, and it's their Halloween celebration. And they have a little path through their small campus where people in costume represent peacemakers and hand the children who walk through little gifts. And for a couple of years, we had somebody being Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I don't think there are many schools in the United States who have Dietrich Bonhoeffer show up to their Halloween celebration. We've done other things with the school, and if you ever meet a Circle School student, you will know it because they are different, and they're different in a good way, in a really good way. The school was founded based on the principles first laid out by a guy called Nicholas Roerich, who was a Russian artist and philosopher. And if you go to the school, you'll see a symbol. It's a big solid circle, 3 solid circles with enclosed in another circle. It's called the Peace Banner or Pax Cultura. And what it means is to embrace the diversity, to embrace all cultures, to celebrate our cultures, our nature, our being. It's a school that teaches empathy and compassion. It teaches the golden rule and growing wings and going to the stars. We saw that. It raises children the way we would want our own children to be raised, the way our community needs our children to be raised. Children who learn conflict resolution, who learn critical thinking skills, who think with their hearts as well as with their brains, who don't get grades or meaningless tests, but come out of their pre-K through 8th grade education being change makers, being unusually poised, creative, kind, and intelligent students. I have another poem, a whole poem this time. And this one is by somebody you might not have heard of. Her name is Nicolette Salder. And to me, when I read this poem, I immediately thought of the Circle School students. May we raise children who love the unloved things, the dandelion, the worms, and the spiderlings. Children who sense the rose needs the thorn and run into rain-swept days the same way that they turn towards the sun. And when they're grown, and someone has to speak for those who have no voice, may they draw upon that wilder bond, those days of tending tender things, and be the ones. These are the ones. The Circle School past, present, and future. And we have 3 people who are going to represent the past, present, and future. And we'll start with Isabeth, who is one of the founders of the school. So over to you.
Oops. Okay, I believe you can hear me.
We can.
I just want to say that the school started in 1965. and I was about 25 years old. And with the help of Belle Graubard in founding the school. And then with the incredible presence of wonderful teachers who, as we grew year after year, showed up and joined us, and certainly contributed a great deal in the forming of the school and its early years. I'm 80 now, and my introduction to Nicholas Roerich and his wife, Helena, and to the Roerich peace symbol gave me a huge seed for the starting of the school. And it did that through its they did not have the help of technology, but they, at the time of the First World War, they found that symbol by doing their research, and they found it in such diverse cultures all over the world. And they made it as a banner of peace to celebrate humanity. And that we as human beings, we seek to understand life and our being here through our art, through our science, and through our spirituality. And it has made, it was, first of all, it was placed on a cornerstone as part of the school when we dedicated the school and added a cornerstone that leaned against the front of the building for a long time. Anyway, it was very large. And it is a huge joy to me to see what a presence of peace and peacemaking and respect for that as a way of humans connecting is so expressed in San Antonio and in your Peace Center. It is also a great honor to be in the company of everyone connected to the Circle School and in the company of Jacqueline and Carrie and all the rest of you. Thank you very, very much.
Rachel, I think you're next.
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to invite Vivian, a current 7th grade student, to go first.
Okay.
The 7th grader.
I have been a student at the Circle School for 3 years. On my first day, I realized that the school was different from anything I've ever experienced in my educational history. I came from a school where uniforms were required, where you had to walk in line, and I feared all my teachers. The Circle School is different from that. I respect my teachers, but don't feel isolated from them. Instead of feeling fear each time a teacher talks to me, I feel calm. Circle School teachers taught peace through the way they treat their students. My math and science teacher encourages me when I don't understand things. My English and history teacher encourages love of literature and gives me new and unique things to read. I feel more competent in each subject because of this. Each school year in our morning circle, we hear hundreds of stories from different places and cultures. I become a better listener, writer, and storyteller through these stories. Our daily stories make distant places seem closer and humanize the peoples of each region. When we hear stories passed down from generation to generation, it connects all of us. My classmates have learned about the environment and how to treat it peacefully. Before I came to the Circle School, I never thought much about peace. Our country had been at war my entire life. War seemed inevitable. But Circle School not only teaches academic subjects, it teaches us about peace. This has affected me and all my classmates. English, we read stories of immigrants of people struggling with diseases, and of life in the Dust Bowl. These stories are very different, but so many of them involve dreamers. The characters dream of a better world, and I started to dream of a better world too. In history, we studied terrible wars and learned about pacifists like Buddhists and Quakers. Studying history has taught me the cost of war and the value of peace. In science, we learned about the effects human actions have on Earth. These ideas stay with me. I hope that I am able to teach peace in the same way that I was taught peace here. My education has made me realize that peace is an option for everyone. I owe the Circle School so much. It allows students to be themselves and helps us grow to be open-minded, compassionate people. It gives us hope to change the world and to make it a peaceful place.
Thank you so much, Vivian and Isabeth. So I'm Rachel Morris. I serve as the education coordinator at the Circle School, and I'm the mom of 3 amazing student change makers. So as you've heard, we're a community that sings together and learns together, but we're also a storytelling school. So as Vivian said, every day begins with an invitation to listen to one of our teachers paint a picture with their words of an oral story from a near or distant corner of the globe. It could be funny or sad or inspiring. The best stories usually have a little bit of each. And as you begin to spend part of each day listening to stories from cultures around the world, common themes and images soon begin to emerge. One tale that appears across many locations and times in our history is the story of the weaver of tomorrow, seated at her loom and creating with her deft fingers each day, event, outcome as it occurs. The fates of the world become bound up in the woven images, and the threads on the loom, each representing a single life, are woven together into the collective history of humankind. I'd like to take a moment to invite you to pause and imagine the rich tapestry of your own life, woven with bright strands, each one a member of your family, a friend, a mentor, a special place of belonging, a moment that opened your eyes to a new truth or possibility. The ways in which our threads intertwine in connection and community shapes the very fabric of our lives. I'm so very proud to be here today in celebration of the golden thread of peace that runs through our school's story. At the Circle School, we teach peace through learning about the cultures of our world and embedding empathy in our shared experiences and practices. I talk to parents often who mention that the depth of learning that their student is encountering, the diverse context for understanding others, they themselves didn't have the opportunity to explore until high school, college, or graduate school. The lessons on peace on our campus will look a little different depending on the day or which classroom you step into. You will see our youngest students in the moon room, sun room, and star room, learning how to play, build, and collaborate together, and begin to consider the impact of our actions on other people and on our Mother Earth. You will see the 7-year-olds in the sky room discussing one of the questions from their year-long philosophy exploration. Questions like, is it ever okay to lie, steal, be violent? Or is it important for you to try to understand the feelings of other people? Students in the Peace Room learn under a banner that reads, stand here and think of someone you love, imbuing the entire room with a sense of compassion and care. Song, Rainbow, and Dream Room students dig deeper into conversations about what makes a good friend, what experiences have marginalized groups of people endured over time, how have the methods of nonviolence and direct action led to change, and what challenges do we still face? In addition, our methods for addressing conflict resolution in our community center around empathy. For parents and for teachers, Alfie Cohn outlines the steps to support growth of a golden rule mindset in children, and I'll paraphrase a little here. Step number 1, care about them as people and individuals, hopefully on the good days, but definitely on the bad ones. Number 2, show them how to embody the golden rule with your own words and actions. Acknowledge when you falter, or outright fail. Show them what it looks like to get up and try again. Number 3, let them practice together and trust that while children may need your support, they can usually craft their own solutions. And finally, number 4, continue to talk with them as they grow and develop their own voices and perspectives. Try to lean into listening more than you speak. In closing, it's important to name that this year for our community has looked and felt very different than any of the previous ones. After moving to distance learning at the end of last school year, we reopened our campus to students and teachers this fall, but we still miss our ritual of gathering together with our whole community for Story in the Earth Room each day. Our path through the pandemic has included time when all or some of our students have been learning from home through their screens with the supports of parents and caregivers. During a time that has been challenging for everyone, we recognize that the connections in our community are more important than ever, and that many students all around the world are missing out on the opportunity to be connected with their learning communities in the same way. We hope to spend our time this year as Peace Laureates and Changemakers, elevating the importance of nature and community-based learning in San Antonio. While there is much that takes place in our classrooms, many of the most important moments happen as we spend our days together, walking under the same sky, talking about big questions, and working towards the solutions that will lead us to a brighter, more equitable, and more peaceful world. Thank you.
Thank you all. And since we just heard from a school, again, I was going to ask everyone to reflect and connect what resonated, but I'm thinking right now, a word or two of what you learned today. What have we learned that we didn't know before? I think it might be the best way we can honor our honorees. So if you wouldn't mind writing some of those words in chat, would be nice. And I hope that at least one of our honorees, if not all of them, because this was virtual, we had some deliver an award bag earlier this week to our honorees. And I'm hoping that someone has brought theirs with them. Jackie, Carrie, maybe Blanca, I don't know who has that with them. And maybe Bill, you could put the next slide up. Every year we, I think it's one of our creative fun things that we do. We like to find a physical award that is meaningful to the folks who are receiving the award. And so this year, we have pictures here in the slide. All of our honorees are receiving a couple hundred golden rulers. So if you know them and you want some of those to share in not only their celebration and their honoring, but the fact that you are also a part of that peacemaking and compassion building that they've been doing in their life. So there are other things I think in that bag, but these are the awards. So if you want to give them a shout in the chat and say, I want one of those. So I'm just going to tell all awardees, I want at least one of all of those. So thank you. And we now turn to what we've all come for today, and that is the ritual of blessing. So I'm going to now hand it on to Rosalind. Rosalind, you're muted.
Unmute, Rosalind.
Of course. Thank you. What a wonderful afternoon. I want to thank not only the awardees, the honorees, but all of you who came to this blessing of the peacemakers. I invite everyone to open your camera again and put yourself on gallery view so that you see all those little icons of peace. And we're going to scroll and see each other and our present universe. And as we begin our blessing, I'd like to remind you of the secret I shared with you at the beginning of our time together today. But first, I'd like you to put your hand on your heart, to open up that center in each one of us, that center of compassion, forgiveness, and love. And here's the secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. So as we have this blessing ritual, if you can use your other hand to scroll as you look at the different icons of love and compassion that are on your screen, see the people who are there. You can smile at them, opening ourselves to their heart energy, and hopefully they're open to our heart energy. This is our universe. And all that we have heard today and experienced today, this is one constellation of our universe that we call San Antonio and beyond. Our universe that we step into each and every day with as much humility and hope as we can muster. Our universe that has been co-created by a lineage of laureates and stars of peacemakers across time. Take a deep breath as you look at the faces. Our universe, our one verse, our one voice, our one shared calling to peace through each and all of our combined steps of compassion. Look at all those wonderful people, those wonderful icons of compassion. We've come to what we've all been waiting for and has brought us together today. The blessing of all San Antonians who labor for peace. We're going to watch and listen again to the beautiful Circle School song. And we invite you, if you'd like, to unmute your mics and you can sing along with the Circle School children whenever you wish and are able to join this with our cacophony of starlit voices and and lives blessing each other.
Sing.
Circle of hands, circle of hearts,
This heart and stars, circle of earth, circle of sky, sun and moon and
stars, a tale to tell,
a song to
find
sing,
our
find our
and
roots and fly our
our
wings, the rainbow
rainbow dream,
dream, the
the
golden
golden
rule,
rules,
teaching
teaching
peace, the
peace, the
circle
circle
school,
school,
circle
circle
of
of
time,
time, circle
of
a
trust,
world
a
a
thousand
thousand each
each
of
of
us,
us,
circle of
circle of
friends,
family,
circle of
circle of
friends,
friends, a
a
brave
road
wide
to
world,
mend,
men, a
a tale
tale
to
to
tell,
tell,
a
a
song
song
to
to
sing.
sing.
We
We
find
find
our
our
roots
roots
and
and
try
try
our
our
wings.
wings.
The
The
rainbow
rainbow
dream,
dream,
the
the
golden
golden
rule,
rule,
teaching
teaching
peace.
peace. The
The circle school,
circle,
teaching
teaching
peace.
peace.
The
The
circle
circle
school.
school.
Let there be peace everywhere, per aspera ad astra, through hardship to the stars. Anne?
Thank you all again for coming and for being so brave to open your mics for those who sang along. This concludes our blessing, but we do have some things coming up. First of all, really want to thank sacred.org for powering today's blessing. And there will be a recording of today's blessing, and you will find it at the Compassionate San Antonio website, sacompassion.net. The next gathering that's coming out of Compassionate San Antonio Grassroots will be a part 2 of community conversation that we started the night before the presidential election called Faith in Humanity. And that's going to be held on April 5th. So we'll be sending out more information about that. But as we all know from the last several weeks plus, how important community is, how important conversation is, and being a part of both community and conversation. So we invite you to mark your calendars for Faith and Humanity Part 2, but also to mark your calendar for next year's Blessing of the San Antonio Peacemakers. Again, it's always the last Sunday of January, always 3 to 5. So again, blessings. Let there be peace everywhere. Per aspera ad astra. Thank you for coming.